guys, thank you for joining me again today. So I received these recipe cards on Amazon as a gift for purchasing some items, and I was so excited because I wanted to do a recipe card box, and I came up with a great box to show you guys. So if you want to see what I do, please stay tuned. And of course, every single item that I use will be listed in the description box below, so feel free to check that out before you continue the rest of this video. Let's get started with the base. For the base of the box, we need 2 sheets of 80-pound cardstock paper. In this case, I am using the Nina Bright White 80-pound cover cardstock. And we are going to join these two to make the base of the box. Using our first sheet of cardstock, we are going to place some score lines. Our first score line will be at 3 inches. So let's run one along there. And then place a second score line at 10 inches. Rotate your paper to the 8.5 inch side. And we place another score line at 3 inches. And we'll place another one at 7.5 inches. And then we do this for the second sheet of paper. So we should have 2 sheets of paper with our score lines. If you could see those score lines, with our score lines looking like this. We are actually making a reinforced box when we do it like this. So I'm just going to burnish these lines, and then we'll continue from there. Right, so I went ahead and I burnished all my score lines. So if you can see this very clearly, you would see a small rectangular area here. So we are going to use our scissors and we are going to cut this out. And we are also going to cut this score line, going up this score line to this area of our box. We'll also do that for the top 1 inch part that we have there. So let's just do that. I always take forever to cut these things. Let's move this out of the way. Right, so it should look like this thus far. Alright, what we can do as well is cut a little notch out at these so that it could give us a smooth fold when it comes to folding our box. I could just leave it like that right now. Let's see how it goes. And we do the same thing for the second sheet of paper. Right, again we want to cut off this part. Right, so let's just get this out of the way. Alright, so this will be our side and the base of our box. Right, so what we are going to do now is on the small skinny parts of our sides of our boxes, we're going to put down a sheet of score tape, and we'll also do it for this side as well. We also need to cut off this small little square on both sides of the paper before we stick them with the score tape. So I went ahead and I added my score tape to the both sides of the sheet of the paper. So what we want to do now is remove that, and where you see the thicker side of your second sheet, we want to stick it down on this side like so, and do it to the other side like this, so that we could complete our box. So I'm just going to do that for you now off camera, and then I'll be right back. Right, so this is how it looks thus far. So our box is shaping up, right? We want it like this. If you check it, okay, it's shaping up. Right, so these flaps now would form our base. So we want to do it like this, you know. So we put in the two smaller parts in there like that, and then we will fold this in like this. So this will form the base of our box. And then we would stick these in as our reinforcement for the top of the box. So that is how our box is going to look when we are finished. But before we get to this point, we need to stick the designer paper on the outside. So I'm just going to do that before we complete the sticking of the box. To cover the outside of our box and our lid, I have this really nice recipe design paper, and this comes from the collection Best of Crate Paper, 180 papers. So I'm using that one for the design of the box. You can use any other paper that you like, but because it's a recipe, I actually am excited to use this one. To cover the sides of our boxes, I cut 2 pieces of the designer paper that measures 6.5 inches by 4 inches. And for the 2 short sides, I cut 2 pieces that measure 2 3/4 inches by 4 inches. So let's just place those on the side of the box now. At this point, I'm just using my ATG gun to attach each sheet. Okay, so I have stuck all my pieces onto my box. So the next thing for us to do is to attach the base. So we are going to stick these 2 flaps down, place some score tape on this side and score tape on the other side, and then we adhere and we form the box. All right, so we're just going to do that, and then I'll show you guys how it looks. All right, so we've completed the base of the box. So this is how it should look thus far. Right, and what you could do, you could use wet adhesive as well with your score tape to give your box a firm base, and make sure you press down the inside so that it's stuck properly. So our next thing would be to fold these flaps in like this and place adhesive on those, and that will reinforce the base of our box. All right, so I have reinforced the top of the box. So this is how the base of the box should look thus far. And now we could put our cards inside there. All right, so we are now going to set this aside, and we are now going to build the lid of the box. For our lid, we need a piece that measures 9.225 inches by 5.1625 inches. And what we are going to do is score 1 inch all around. So we score our first score line at 1 inch, and then we have another score line at 8.28 inches. Then we rotate, we make a score line at 1 inch, and our next score line at 4 1/8 of an inch. And then what we do is, where this score line meets our other score line at this intersection, we cut out up to that point for all the little flaps. So we just make one cut there around each of the flaps. What I usually do as well, to make my fold smooth, I make a small notch next to my cut, and I make another small notch at the end. So we are just going to do this for each of the flaps. Right, so I went ahead and I burnished all my score lines. So now for each of the small flaps, I'm going to place some adhesive here so that I can stick them together. So after I stick them together, each of them will come together like this to form our flap. You can also reinforce each of your flap using wet adhesive. I just like to use score tape. Okay, so this is how our lid should look like thus far, after having placed in the flaps. So what we are going to do now is use the design paper to complete the top. And I also have some flowers, some wild orchid crafts that I've been dying to use to make a recipe box. So I'm going to throw that in as well. For the lid of the box, we need one piece measuring 6.375 inches by 3 inches. And we also need 2 small pieces for the sides measuring 3/4 of an inch by 3 inches, and we need 2 medium-sized tin strips measuring 3/4 of an inch by 7 inches. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to stick these to cover the top and the sides of the lid. Okay, so we have completed covering our lid of our box. So now what we're going to do is, I have some flowers from Wild Orchid Crafts that I would love to use on this box. So I'm just going to play around with these. And see how best that they fit in. See how best they fit in on my box. So I've played around with my flowers and I think I want them in this position. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick these down. Alright, so I've placed the lid on the box, and this is what it looks like thus far. So I want to put one last thing on top here, and that's the label, because I want a recipe label. So what I did, I had some pink glitter cardstock on hand, so I used my flower punch and I cut out a flower, and I used my circle punch and I did a cutout, and using my pink Sharpie marker, I wrote recipes and did a little stitching. So I'm just going to add these two and place it at the top of the box, like so. And there we have it, guys. That's it. So I've attached my label at the top, and this is how my recipe box turned out. Pretty happy with it thus far. So I'm just going to throw in my recipe cards into it. And the next thing that I have to do is make some labels and dividers for my recipe cards. So I made a pretty good amount of space so that I could fill this up as time progresses. And that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video in order to see more. Bye.